For 37 years, your father didn't let anyone enter the attic. But right after his funeral, Caroline Miller never imagined that at 35 she'd be returning to her childhood home carrying just one suitcase and her 9-year-old daughter. Her father had passed 3 days ago, taking with him decades of silence and a key he always kept hidden in his shirt pocket. Right after the funeral, Caroline held for the first time that small golden key that Mr. Arthur had kept for 37 years. The attic lock, rusted with time, creaked when she finally opened it. Her fingers trembled, touching the doorknob that had been forbidden to the entire family for so long. "Mummy, why did Grandpa never let us come up here?" asked Maya, her daughter, peeking from behind her mother's shoulder. "I don't know, sweetie, but today we're going to find out." The wooden stairs groaned under their weight as they climbed. The smell of mold mixed with something sweet, almost medicinal, filled her nostrils. Caroline turned on her phone's flashlight and illuminated the space that hadn't seen sunlight for decades. Stacked boxes occupied every corner of the small area. They were all carefully organized and labeled with a neat handwriting that Caroline recognized as her father's. But what caught her attention most was an old crib positioned in the center of the attic, covered with a white sheet that seemed to have been placed there recently. "Mommy, look!" Maya pointed to an entire wall covered with photographs hanging from strings. Caroline approached and felt her heart race. There were hundreds of photos of a child she didn't recognize, all dated from the last 9 years. The first photo showed a baby of a few months. The last showed a girl who seemed to be the same age as Maya. "Who is this girl, Mommy? She looks like me." The resemblance was disturbing. Caroline picked up one of the most recent photos and observed it carefully. The child had the same curly brown hair as Maya, the same green eyes, even the small scar on the chin that her daughter had had since she was little. With trembling hands, she opened the first box labeled Documents 2015. Inside, she found birth certificates, vaccination records, and even detailed medical reports. The name on the certificate was Mary Kate Jenkins, and the date of birth was exactly the same as Maya's. "This can't be happening," murmured Caroline, feeling her legs go weak. She opened another box and found letters, dozens of them, all signed by Sarah Jenkins, addressed to her father. The date started 9 years ago and continued until the previous year. Caroline opened one of the oldest letters with trembling fingers. "Mr. Arthur, thank you for taking care of my Mary Kate. I know she's in good hands. As we agreed, I'll keep sending the photos for you to keep. One day, when I can get properly settled, I'll come back for her." "Sarah?" Caroline let the letter fall to the floor. Reality began to form in her mind like a nightmare. She picked up another letter, this time more recent. "Mr. Arthur, it's been 9 years now. My situation has improved a lot. I got married and have a stable family now. I think it's time for me to tell the truth to my husband and bring Mary Kate back home. Can we talk about this next week?" "Sarah." "Mommy, are you okay?" Maya touched her mother's arm with concern. Caroline looked at her daughter. Or was she her daughter? Her eyes filled with tears as she tried to process what she was discovering. For 9 years, she had raised, loved, and cared for a child who might not be hers. Her father had lied to her all this time. "Maya, go downstairs. Mommy needs to be alone here for a little bit." "But Mommy..." "Go, sweetie. Make a snack for us. I'll be down in a few minutes." Reluctantly, Maya went down the stairs. Caroline continued rummaging through the boxes, each discovery more shocking than the last. She found medical receipts paid by her father, proof of monthly child support in dollars deposited into a bank account, and even reports from a private investigator hired to track the development of the real Maya. In one of the smaller boxes, she found a sealed envelope with her name written in large letters. With her heart in her throat, she opened and read the letter left by her father. "My dear daughter, if you are reading this, it is because I am no longer here to explain in person. I know this will hurt deeply, but you deserve to know the truth. Maya is not your biological daughter. 9 years ago, a desperate woman named Sarah came to me asking for help. She had a newborn baby and was fleeing a violent man. She had nowhere to go, and no means to raise the child. I offered temporary help, but days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and before I knew it, you already loved that baby as if she were your own. Caroline had to stop reading to catch her breath. Tears blurred her vision. I should have told you the truth from the start, but I saw how happy you were together. Maya needed a mother, and you always dreamed of being a mother. It seemed perfect. Sarah agreed to stay away until she could get back on her feet. She sends photos regularly and contributes financially to the girl's upbringing, even though you didn't know it. The letter continued for several pages, revealing details that made Caroline's world collapse. Her father explained that Sarah had gotten married 3 years ago and now lived in a nearby town. She had built a new family and finally felt ready to take custody of her daughter. In the weeks before I passed, Sarah was pushing to arrange a meeting. She wants to take Maya back. I know this will destroy both of you, but legally she has that right. The decision is now yours, my daughter. Do what you think is best for the girl's happiness. At the end of the letter, there was an address and a phone number. Sarah Jenkins' house was written next to it. Caroline sat on the attic floor for almost an hour, trying to process everything she had discovered. Downstairs, she could hear Maya humming in the kitchen, preparing a snack like a normal child who still didn't know her entire life was about to change. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. As if in a kind of trance, Caroline went downstairs and found Maya sitting at the kitchen table with 2 steaming cups of hot cocoa. I made it the way you like it, Mom, with lots of sugar. The child's innocent smile shattered Caroline's heart. How could she tell her that they might not really be mother and daughter? How to explain that there is a woman somewhere who has the legal right to take her away? Maya, sit here next to me. I need to talk to you. Is it about what we found up there? Caroline was surprised by the girl's perceptiveness. Did you see the pictures? I did. The girl in the pictures looks a lot like me, right? Maya spoke with a casualness that contrasted with the tension of the moment. What do you think about that? I don't know, it's weird. Grandpa never talked about other kids in the family. Maya took a sip of the hot cocoa. Mom, I always knew I was different. Different how? You have blue eyes, I have green eyes. You're short, I'm almost your height already. You don't like to draw, I love it. The girl spoke without any drama, as if listing obvious traits. And there's that mark on my arm that you said you don't know where it came from. Caroline looked at the small heart-shaped birthmark on Maya's right arm. She had never really been able to explain where it came from, since neither she nor her late husband had similar marks. Maya, what if I found out that maybe you have another family? The girl's eyes widened. Another family how? A mother. A real mother. Maya was silent for a long moment, looking at her own hands. You're not my real mother, she asked, her voice almost a whisper. I don't know anymore, my love. I'm trying to understand all of this too. To Caroline's surprise, the girl didn't start to cry. On the contrary, she seemed to reflect deeply on the situation. You know what I think, Mommy? She finally said. It doesn't matter if you carried me in your belly or not. You're the one who takes care of me, who takes me to school, who stays with me when I'm sick. Isn't that being a real mother? The child's simple, wise words made Caroline cry profusely. She hugged her daughter tightly, feeling a mixture of immense love and terrible fear of losing her. But what if this other person wants you back? Then we talk to her. Maybe she just wants to meet me, not necessarily take me away. Maya's maturity impressed Caroline. At 9 years old, the girl showed an emotional wisdom that many adults didn't possess. That night, after Maya fell asleep, Caroline stayed awake reading all the letters she had found in the attic. Sarah's story unfolded through 9 years of correspondence. She had been a 17-year-old teenager when she got pregnant by a violent young man. She ran away from home during the pregnancy and arrived in the quiet suburb where Mr. Arthur lived with no money and no prospects. Caroline's father, who was always known for his kindness and willingness to help people in need, offered temporary shelter to the pregnant girl. When the baby was born, Sarah was in a very fragile emotional state. Suffering from what the letters suggested was severe postpartum depression. "I can't even look at her," Sarah wrote in one of the first letters. "Every time I see her little face, I remember her father and everything I went through. I know this is wrong, but I can't feel anything but emptiness. Maybe it really is better to leave her with you for a while." The following letters showed Sarah's emotional evolution over the years. She had gone to therapy, gotten a stable job, and gradually recovered her mental health. At 24, she married a man who supported and understood her. "David knows everything about my past," she wrote in a letter from 2 years ago. "He wants to help me bring Mary Kate back home. Now we are in a position to give her a good life, our own home, financial stability, and lots of love to give." Caroline closed the last letter feeling lost. Sarah seemed to be a genuinely good person who had been through difficult times and was now ready to take on her responsibilities. But how to explain this to a 9-year-old child who only knew one family? The next morning, Caroline decided she needed to meet Sarah in person before making any decision. She left Maya at the neighbor's house, Mrs. Gable, and drove to the address on the letter. The house was simple but well kept, with a flower garden in front and toys scattered in the backyard. Caroline watched from a distance for a few minutes before knocking on the door. When the door opened, Caroline found herself facing a blonde woman with green eyes who looked very much like Maya. Sarah must have been about 26 and was holding a baby of about a year old in her arms. "Are you Caroline?" Sarah asked in a soft voice. "I am. Are you Sarah?" "Please come in. I was expecting your visit." The house was cozy, with family photos scattered on the walls. Caroline noticed there was no picture of Maya, but that was understandable given the situation. "Would you like some coffee?" offered Sarah, settling the baby in a crib. "Thank you." They sat at the kitchen table, and for a few minutes they were silent, each trying to find the right words. "First, I want you to know I am eternally grateful for what you and your father did for Mary Kate. For Maya," Sarah began. "I know it wasn't easy raising a child who appeared out of nowhere in your lives." "She was never a burden," Caroline replied firmly. "I love her as if she were my own daughter." "I know. Your father always told me how happy you were together. That's why it took me so long to make this decision." Sarah sighed deeply. "But now that I'm in a position to offer her a stable life, I feel it's my duty to try." "And your husband? How does he feel about this?" "David supports me completely. He wants to meet Mary Kate and treat her as his own daughter." Sarah pointed to the baby sleeping in the crib. "This is Petey, our son. He's going to love having a big sister." Caroline felt a pang in her heart. Sarah's family seemed perfect, structured, full of love to give. How could she compete with that? "May I ask, why now? Why not before?" Sarah lowered her eyes, clearly embarrassed. "Because I was a coward. For a long time I was afraid to take responsibility, afraid I wouldn't be a good mother." She paused. "And also because I knew you two were happy. I didn't want to destroy that out of my own selfishness." "And now, you're not afraid of destroying it?" "I'm very afraid. But my therapist helped me understand that I have rights and duties as the biological mother, and that Mary Kate also has the right to know her true origins." The conversation continued for over 2 hours. Sarah showed pictures of the house, her husband, the extended family. She talked about plans for the future, about the school Maya would attend, about how she intended to explain the situation to her baby son when he grew up. "I don't want to take her from you abruptly," Sarah said, as the conversation was coming to an end. "We can do this gradually. She can spend weekends here, then holidays until she gets used to us. And if she doesn't want to, then we'll respect her feelings. But I think she at least deserves the chance to choose, don't you think?" Caroline left Sarah's house with her heart even more confused. The woman wasn't the villain of the story. She was just a mother who had made mistakes in the past and now wanted to correct them. The problem was that those mistakes had created a complex emotional situation with no simple solution. On the way back home, she stopped at the cemetery where her father had been buried 3 days before. She sat on the ground beside the grave and spoke to him as if he were still alive. Why didn't you tell me the truth before you left, Dad? Why did you leave all this responsibility to me? She whispered through tears. I don't know what to do. If I let Maya go, I'll miss her terribly. But if I stop her, I'll be selfish. The wind rustled the cemetery trees, creating a soft melody that calmed her heart a little. Caroline stayed there for almost an hour, organizing her thoughts and trying to find the strength to make the most difficult decision of her life. When she got home, she found Maya playing in the backyard with her dolls, completely unaware of the drama unfolding around her. How was your walk, Mom? It was enlightening. Did you find out about the girl in the pictures? Caroline took a deep breath. Yes, I did. Do you want to talk about it? Maya dropped the dolls and approached her mother. You went to talk to her, didn't you? With the other mother. The girl's perceptiveness continued to surprise Caroline. How did you know? From the letters I saw in the attic. I read a few before you got here. Maya showed no guilt for snooping. She seems like a nice person in the letters. Yeah, she does seem to be. And she wants me to go live with her? She wants to meet you to see if you two get along. Maya was thoughtful for a moment. Can I meet her? The simple question took Caroline by surprise. You want to meet her? Yes, I do. I've always been curious about where I came from. Maya sat on her mother's lap. But Mommy, even if I like her, you'll always be my heart, Mommy, okay? The child's words melted Caroline's heart. She hugged her daughter tightly, realizing she might have underestimated the girl's emotional capacity to handle the situation. Okay then, I'll call her and set up a meeting. Can I talk to her on the phone? Yes, if you want to. That night, Caroline called Sarah and explained the conversation she had with Maya. Sarah was moved to learn her daughter wanted to meet her, but also showed sensitivity by suggesting the first meeting be on neutral ground. How about we meet at Main Square on Saturday afternoon, suggested Sarah. A public place where she'll feel safe. I think that's a good idea. And Caroline, thank you for being so understanding. I know this can't be easy for you. It really isn't easy, but I want to do what's best for Maya. Saturday arrived faster than Caroline would have liked. She helped Maya pick out a pretty outfit and fixed the girl's hair with special care as if it were an important day, and it really was. Mommy, are you nervous? Asked Maya in the car. Yes, I am. And you? A little. But I'm also curious. Remember what we agreed? If at any point you want to leave, just let me know. I remember. Main Square was busy that Saturday afternoon. Children played on the playground while parents chatted on the benches. Caroline and Maya sat on a bench near the fountain and waited. They didn't have to wait long. Sarah appeared with her husband, pushing a stroller. She waved timidly when she saw Caroline and approached slowly. Hi, she said simply when she got close. Hi, replied Caroline. There was a moment of awkward silence before Maya took the initiative. Are you Sarah? Yes, I am. And you're Maya? I am. Sarah crouched down to the girl's level, clearly emotional. Wow, you've grown so much, and you're beautiful. Thank you. Maya looked at the stroller. Is that my brother? Yes, that's Petey. Can I see? Sarah lifted the baby from the stroller and showed him to Maya, who was enchanted. He's so cute. Can I pet him? Of course you can. David, who had remained silent until then, introduced himself. Hi, Maya. I'm David, Sarah's husband. Hi, Uncle David. The naturalness with which Maya handled the situation helped break the initial tension. Soon they were all sitting on the park benches talking about everyday things. How old are you, Maya? Asked David. 9. I'll be 10 next month. Really? Sarah seemed surprised. I knew your birthday was in October, but I didn't remember the exact date. It's the 15th. That's great. Do you like birthday parties? Yes, I do. Mommy always makes really yummy cakes. Sarah looked at Caroline with gratitude in her eyes. I can imagine. Caroline was always a great cook. The conversation continued for over an hour. Maya asked questions about Sarah's family, about the city where they lived, about the baby. Sarah, in turn, wanted to know about school, friends, and the girls' favorite games. What impressed Caroline the most was the resemblance between mother and biological daughter, not just physical, but also in personality. Both were sweet, communicative, and had the same way of tilting their heads when they were thinking. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. When the meeting ended, Maya surprised everyone. "Sarah, would you like to come over for dinner tomorrow?" Sarah looked at Caroline, clearly surprised by the invitation. "If Caroline doesn't mind." "Of course I don't mind," Caroline replied, though inside she felt a mix of nervousness and generosity. "You can definitely come." "Great," Maya celebrated. "Then you can see my house and I can play more with Petey." On Sunday, Sarah and David arrived for dinner, bringing flowers for Caroline and a toy for Maya. The atmosphere was more relaxed than the day before. Maya made sure to show the entire house to the visitors, including her room, her drawings, her dolls. Sarah observed everything attentively, clearly moved to see how her daughter had grown up in a loving environment. "She has a real talent for drawing," Sarah commented, looking at the artwork stuck on the refrigerator. "She really does. She's always drawing." Caroline served dinner. "I wonder where she gets that from." "My mother was an artist. She painted beautiful canvases." Sarah smiled nostalgically. "Maybe it's genetic inheritance." During dinner, David told funny stories that made Maya laugh a lot. He had a special way with children and would clearly make a good stepfather. "Uncle David, do you have any kids?" asked Maya. "Just Petey, but I've always wanted a daughter too." "And if I come to live with you, will you be my stepdad?" The direct question took everyone by surprise. David looked at Sarah before answering. "If you want me to, I would be very happy to be your stepdad." "Cool. Then I'll have two families." The child's innocence made the adults smile, but Caroline felt a pang of jealousy. The idea of Maya calling another man dad bothered her. After dinner, while Maya played with Petey in the living room, the adults talked in the kitchen. "She's an amazing child," said Sarah. "You've done a wonderful job raising her." "She's always been special," Caroline replied. "Very mature for her age." "Caroline, I want you to know I'm in no rush." Sarah spoke seriously. "If Maya wants to spend more time with us, great. But if she prefers to stay with you, I'll respect that." "And what about your legal rights?" "Legal rights are one thing. A child's emotional well-being is something completely different." Sarah looked toward the living room, where Maya was playing. "She's happy here. She has an established life, friends, school. I won't destroy that on a whim." David agreed with his wife. "We've talked a lot about this. The most important thing is what's best for Maya." Caroline felt relieved but also confused. She had prepared for a legal battle, for arguments about parental rights. Sarah's understanding attitude disconcerted her. "So what do you suggest?" "How about letting Maya decide the pace?" Sarah suggested. "If she wants to visit us on weekends, she can. If she wants to spend vacations with us, she can too. And if one day she wants to live with us, we'll talk about it when the time comes." "And if she decides she never wants to live with you?" "Then at least she'll have known her origins and made a conscious choice." Sarah smiled sadly. That's better than always wondering about her story. The proposal seemed fair, though Caroline still had fears. What if Maya liked the new family so much that she decided to leave? What if she preferred the bigger house, the greater financial stability, the complete family that Sarah could offer? In the following weeks, Maya began spending Saturdays at Sarah and David's house. She would always return excited, telling about the outings, playing with her little brother, the treats she received. "Mommy, Sarah is teaching me to paint," she shared on one such occasion. "She said my grandma was a famous painter." "That's great, sweetie." "And Uncle David took me to the club. There's a huge pool there." Each happy story Maya told was like a stab to Caroline's heart. She tried hard to show joy for her daughter's happiness, but inside she was dying of jealousy. Mrs. Gable, the neighbor, noticed her friend's suffering. "Caroline, "You need to stop tormenting yourself like this," she said during an afternoon coffee. "The girl is happy, isn't that what matters?" "Yeah, but what if she decides she wants to live there?" "Then you'll have to accept it and be happy that she has 2 families who love her." "It's easy for you to say, Gable. You have 3 children, I only have her." "But you will always have her. It's just that now she'll have even more people to love and be loved by." The neighbor's words made sense, but they didn't lessen the pain Caroline felt. There were nights when she lay awake imagining what life would be like without Maya if the girl decided to leave. Time passed and Maya continued dividing herself between the 2 houses. She had adapted to the routine with impressive naturalness. Monday through Friday she stayed with Caroline, Saturday with Sarah and David, Sunday as a family with Caroline again. It was during one of these Sundays that Maya made an unusual request. "Mummy, can I ask Sarah and David to come here?" "They're always invited, you know that." "No, I mean, to live here." Caroline nearly choked on her coffee. "What do you mean?" "The house is big. There's Grandpa's room that's empty. They could live here and we'd be a big family." The suggestion was touching but completely impractical. "Sweetheart, adults don't all live together like that. They have their own house, their jobs. But it would be so good if everyone lived together." Maya's genuine desire to unite the 2 families showed how healthily she had processed the situation. For her, there was no conflict in having 2 families. There was just more love available. The girl's idea gave Caroline an inspiration. What if, instead of seeing Sarah as a rival, she tried to see her as an ally in raising Maya? The following week, she called Sarah and invited her to lunch, just the 2 of them. "I wanted to talk to you about something." "Of course. Did something happen with Maya?" No, it's about the 2 of us." They met at a restaurant downtown. Caroline was nervous but determined. "Sarah, I have a proposal for you." "I'm listening." "What if instead of competing for Maya's love, we collaborated?" Sarah seemed interested. "What do you have in mind?" "We could create a joint plan for her upbringing, share responsibilities, important decisions, everything. As if we were co-mothers." The idea was unusual, but Sarah showed immediate interest. "I never thought of that, but it makes a lot of sense. Maya likes both of us, needs both of us." "Exactly. And that way she doesn't have to choose one or the other." They spent the rest of the lunch working out the details of this maternal partnership. Sarah would help with Maya's school and medical expenses. Caroline would continue to be the primary mother during the week. The 2 would make important decisions together, like school choice, extracurricular activities, medical matters. "And when she grows up and asks who her real mother is," Sarah asked, "we'll tell her she has 2 real mothers, one who gave her life, another who raised her from a baby, both equally important." The unusual agreement worked better than either of them could have imagined. Maya flourished having 2 maternal figures in her life. Caroline could relax a bit, knowing she wasn't alone in the responsibility of raising the girl. Sarah had fulfilled her dream of being a mother without destroying an already established family. David also adapted well to the arrangement. He became an important father figure for Maya, but always respecting the space and traditions she had with Caroline. 2 years after the first meeting in the attic, Caroline watched Maya playing in the backyard with Petey, who was already walking and saying a few words. The girl, now 11 years old, had grown up confident and happy, surrounded by love from several people. Sarah arrived to pick up the children for a trip to the park. "How was the meeting at school?" she asked Caroline. "The teacher said she's doing very well, especially in visual arts." "She must take after the family. My mother was an artist too. And my grandmother was a teacher. Maybe that's why she likes explaining things to Petey so much." They laughed at the mix of genetic and environmental traits that formed Maya's unique personality. "You know what else amazes me?" said Caroline. "How she never showed any insecurity about the situation. It's as if having 2 families was the most natural thing in the world for her. I think children are more adaptable than we imagine, and she always knew she's loved by all of us." "Mommy Caroline! Mommy Sarah!" shouted Maya from the backyard. "Come see what Petey learned." The 2 women ran to see the news. Petey had learned to say sissy, referring to Maya. "Isn't it beautiful?" said Maya proudly. "He's calling me sister." Caroline and Sarah looked at each other, both with eyes misty with emotion. The unusual family they had built was working. That night, after everyone had left, Caroline went up to the attic for the first time in 2 years. The space had been transformed into an office where she worked at night. The boxes with the documents were still there, but now as part of the family history, no longer as painful secrets. She picked up one of the old photos of baby Maya and smiled. Back when Sarah sent those photos, she never imagined that one day they would all be raising a child together. Her father had lied to her for years, but perhaps he did the right thing. If he had told the truth from the start, Caroline would have been afraid to become attached to Maya. If he had told her before he died, she would have had time to be angry and perhaps make rash decisions. The way it happened, she had time to love Maya unconditionally before discovering the truth. And when she did discover it, the love was already so established that there was no room for resentment. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered to the air. "You knew what you were doing." Life followed its quiet course in the following months. Maya continued happily dividing her time between the two houses. Caroline and Sarah developed a genuine friendship based on their shared love for the girl. David became a caring and present father figure, but the tranquility was shaken when Maya turned 12 and began asking more elaborate questions about her origin. "Mommy Caroline, can I see my birth certificate?" The question caught Caroline off guard during breakfast. "Why do you want to see it?" "I need it for a school project about a family tree." Caroline grew tense. The official birth certificate was still in the name of Mary Kate Jenkins, daughter of Sarah. She had avoided changing the documentation to avoid legal conflicts. "How about we ask Sarah for some help with this project?" "Why? It's just a birth certificate." The girl's insistence left Caroline with no way out. She got the document from the attic and showed it to her daughter. Maya read it carefully and then looked up confused. "Here it says my name is Mary Kate Jenkins and that my mother is Sarah Jenkins. Where's your name?" That was the question Caroline had feared for years. "Maya, sit here. I need to explain something important to you." "I already know. You adopted me when I was a baby, right?" The girl's perceptiveness continued to surprise Caroline. "How did you know?" "I didn't know, but I suspected," Maya said naturally. "Sarah is my birth mother, and you are my adoptive mother. That's why you are both my moms." "And how do you feel knowing this?" "Fine," Maya shrugged. "I always knew my story was different. Now I just understand the details better." "You're not upset I didn't tell you sooner?" "Why would I be? You were protecting me." The girl hugged Caroline. "And besides, it doesn't change anything between us." Once again, Maya's emotional maturity impressed the adults around her. She had processed the information in a healthy way and without drama. For a school project, Maya created a unique family tree, including both Caroline's family and Sarah's. She presented the project, explaining that she had 2 families and that it made her feel doubly loved. The teacher was so impressed with the presentation that she asked Maya to share her story with other classes. The girl became an example of how families can be formed in different ways and still be full of love. When Maya turned 13, Sarah and David made a proposal that surprised everyone. "How about Maya spends the entire December holidays with us?" Sarah suggested during a family lunch. "A whole month?" Caroline felt her heart tighten. "It's just that we want to travel to Cape Cod with the kids. It would be our first real family trip." Maya was excited at the prospect. "Can I, Mama Caroline? It'll be so cool." Caroline wanted to say no, but she knew it would be selfish of her. Maya deserved to have new experiences with the other part of her family. "Yes, you can, but don't forget to send pictures every day." "Of course, and I'll bring you presents." The month of December was the longest of Caroline's life. She received daily pictures and messages from Maya, always happy and excited, but the longing was constant. Mrs. Gable tried to distract her friend. "Take the chance to do those things you can't do when she's here." "What things? My whole life revolves around her." "Well, then it's time for you to find other interests." The neighbor's advice made Caroline reflect. It was true, her life had become completely centered on Maya. Maybe it would be healthy to develop other activities and relationships. When Maya returned from the trip, she was tanned and full of stories to tell. "Mama, it was amazing. We stayed at an inn right by the beach. Petey learned how to make a sand castle. Uncle David taught me how to fish. Caroline listened to all the stories with genuine interest, but also with a twinge of envy. She had never been able to provide a trip like that for Maya. "And you know what else?" the girl continued. "I missed you every single day." "Really? Really? As cool as it was there, here is my real home. It's where I feel most myself." Maya's words reassured Caroline's heart. Regardless of how much time she spent with the other family, the girl still considered that house her true home. The following years passed harmoniously. Maya grew up dividing her time between the two families, always balanced and happy. Caroline learned to handle the longing during the separations and to value their time together even more. When Maya turned 16, she made a decision that surprised everyone. "I want to change my name officially." "To what?" asked Caroline. "I want it to be Maya Jenkins Smith, with the last name from both families." Sarah was moved by the proposal. "Are you sure?" "I do. This way I'll always carry both families with me." The legal process was simple. Soon Maya had a new birth certificate with both last names, and where Caroline appeared as the socio-effective mother. "Now it's official," she said, showing the document. "I have two mothers recognized by law." At 18, Maya took the entrance exam for visual arts, following the artistic vocation she had inherited from her biological family. She was accepted to a university in New York City. The decision to leave home to study was difficult for everyone, but especially for Caroline, who had never been separated from her daughter for so long. "Everything will be okay, Mom," said Maya on moving day. "It's just a new phase of life." "I know. It's just that the house will feel so empty. But I'll come back every weekend I can, and during breaks I'll be here the whole time." Sarah was also emotional about her daughter's departure. "It feels like just yesterday she was that little baby who came into our lives." "It really does. Time passes so quickly." The two women hugged, united by the shared longing for the girl they had raised together. During her first year of college, Maya came home every 2 weeks. She split her time equally between the two families and always brought news about her studies, friends, and professors. "I'm thinking of doing an exhibition on non-conventional families for my senior thesis," she shared during one visit. "What an interesting idea," said Caroline. "It's just that my story might inspire other people who have been through similar situations." The maturity and positive perspective Maya had developed about her own story were admirable. She had transformed what could have been a trauma into a source of strength and inspiration. In her second year of college, she started dating a guy named Ryan, whom she met in her arts program. When she brought him to meet the families, he was impressed by the unique family dynamic. "I've never met anyone who had two mothers," he commented during dinner. "For me, it was always normal," replied Maya. "It's hard to imagine what it would be like to have just one family." Ryan adapted quickly to Maya's family system. He respected the special relationship she had with each of her mothers and never showed any awkwardness or judgment. At 22, as she was graduating, Maya made a special request. "I want both of you to come to my graduation. You are both equally important in my education." Caroline and Sarah sat side by side at the ceremony, proud of the young woman they had raised together. David filmed everything, as emotional as if Maya were his own daughter. In her valedictorian speech, Maya spoke about her unusual family. "I learned that family isn't defined just by blood, but by love, dedication, and presence. I was lucky to have two mothers who taught me that in practice." The speech moved the entire audience and brought tears to Caroline and Sarah's eyes. After graduation, Maya decided to stay in the city to work as an artist. She set up a small studio and began selling her work. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Despite the distance, she kept in constant contact with both families. She called Caroline every night and Sarah every morning. She visited her hometown at least once a month. At 25, Maya and Ryan got married. She insisted on being walked down the aisle by both mothers, one on each side. "This is how it has to be," she said. "You both brought me here." The ceremony was emotional. Caroline and Sarah cried with emotion, seeing the girl they had raised become an adult, independent woman. In her first year of marriage, Maya got pregnant. The news brought immense joy to the entire extended family. "I'm going to be a grandma," celebrated Caroline. "We are going to be grandmas," corrected Sarah with a smile. "That's true. Once again, we'll share this experience." Maya's pregnancy was closely followed by both mothers. They took turns going to New York City to help with the baby preparations and give emotional support. When the baby was born, a beautiful girl named Lily, Caroline and Sarah were both at the hospital. "She's going to have 2 doting grandmas," joked Ryan. "And she will be very loved," added Maya, looking at her daughter in her arms. Little Lily grew up knowing the special story of her family. For her, it was completely normal to have 2 grandmas who weren't sisters, but loved each other as if they were. When Lily turned 5, she asked an innocent question that touched everyone's heart. "Grandma Caroline and Grandma Sarah, why are you friends?" "Because we both love your mommy very much," answered Caroline. "And when you love someone very much, you become friends with whoever else loves that person too," Sarah finished. The simple explanation satisfied the girls' curiosity and reinforced the foundation of love that supported that unusual family. At 30, Maya decided to return to her hometown to raise Lily near her grandmother's. She opened a studio in town and began teaching art classes for children. "It's good to be home," she said on moving day. "This has always been your home," replied Caroline, helping to unload the boxes. Maya's return brought a new dynamic to the family. Lily spent part of the day with one grandma and part with the other, absorbing different knowledge and experiences from each. Caroline taught her granddaughter to cook traditional family recipes. Sarah taught painting techniques she had learned from her own mother. David taught her to play chess and to fish. Petey, now a teenager, became the fun, protective uncle. Little Lily grew up surrounded by love and interesting stories about her unique family. She loved when her grandmas told how they met and decided to raise her mom together. "One day I want to have 2 moms too," she said once. "Why?" asked Maya. "Because then I'll have twice the love." The child's simple logic made everyone laugh and reflect on how that situation, which began as a complex problem, had transformed into a source of emotional abundance. At 65, Caroline retired from the school where she had worked as a secretary for over 30 years. Sarah, who worked in an accounting office, also retired around the same time. "Now we can dedicate ourselves more to Lily," said Sarah during a conversation in Caroline's backyard. "We're going to be the most present grandmas in the world." The 2 women, who had started as potential rivals, had become great friends over the years. They shared not only their love for Maya and Lily, but also interests, experiences, and a unique complicity. David, still working, sometimes joked that the women in the family had formed a secret grandma society. "You 3 always have plans that we men don't know about," he would say, referring to Caroline, Sarah, and Maya. "They're not secret plans," Maya would respond. "They're plans of women who know what they want." The family continued to grow when Petey, at 20, brought a serious girlfriend to meet everyone. The young woman was impressed by the family dynamic. "I've never seen a family so close," she commented to Petey. "It's just that we learned family is about choices, not just about blood," he replied, repeating a lesson he had learned since childhood. When Lily turned 10, the same age Maya was when she discovered the truth about her origins, she wrote a school essay about her family. "My family is different from others because I have 2 grandmothers who aren't sisters, but who love each other as if they were. My mother was raised by both of them, and now they raise me too. I learned that it doesn't matter how a family is formed. What matters is the love that exists between the people." The teacher was so moved by the essay that she shared it with other classes, using it as an example of how different family structures can be healthy and loving. That night, Maya showed the essay to Caroline and Sarah. "She understood everything perfectly," said Caroline with teary eyes. "It's amazing how she processed our story so maturely," agreed Sarah. "It's because for her this is normal. She grew up seeing love, not conflict," observed Maya. The conversation made the 3 women reflect on the journey they had traveled together. What began as a potentially traumatic situation had transformed into the foundation of an extraordinary family. At 12 years old, Lily began to show interest in the full story of her family. She wanted to understand all the details of how her mother had been raised by two women. "Grandma Caroline, were you jealous when you met Grandma Sarah?" she asked during one of the weekends she spent at her grandmother's house. "Yes, I was. Very jealous and very afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid of losing your mother. She was everything to me." "But you didn't lose her." "No, I didn't. In fact, I gained even more. I gained a friend and a partner in raising her." Lily absorbed these conversations with genuine interest, building her own understanding of relationships, love, and family. When she turned 15, Lily decided to do an art project about her family to present at the school science fair. She created an installation with photos, video testimonials, and a timeline showing how her family had been formed. The project was an absolute success. Other students were fascinated by the story and asked many questions about what it was like to have two non-biological grandmothers so close. "It's like having two best friends who are older than you," Lily explained to her classmates. "They teach me different things, but they love me the same way." Lily's project caught the attention of a local journalist who was covering the science fair. He asked to interview the family about their unique structure. Initially, Caroline and Sarah were hesitant to give an interview. "We don't want to become a spectacle," said Caroline. "But maybe our story could help other families in similar situations," pondered Sarah. Maya supported the idea of the interview. "You could inspire other people to find creative solutions for complex family problems." The interview was published in the local newspaper and later shared on social media, reaching thousands of people. Caroline and Sarah received dozens of messages from other families facing similar situations. One of the messages that touched them the most came from a woman who had informally adopted her deceased friend's daughter and was facing pressure from the child's biological family. "Your story gave me hope that it's possible to find a middle ground where everyone wins, especially the child," she wrote. Another message came from a couple who were considering adoption but were afraid of facing the child's biological family. "You showed that different kinds of love can coexist and strengthen each other." The messages made Caroline and Sarah realize that their experience could truly be useful to other people. "Maybe we should write a book," suggested Sarah. "Or at least give talks," added Caroline. Maya was excited about the ideas. "You could help so many families." And Lily could participate too, sharing her point of view. The family decided to create a blog where they would share their experiences and offer support to other families in similar situations. The blog quickly became popular, receiving comments and questions from people across the country. Caroline, at 70 years old, discovered a new passion: writing. She became the blog's main writer, telling stories about the challenges and joys of raising a child in a non-conventional family. Sarah, with her experience in accounting, handled the blog's administrative side and answered questions about the legal and financial aspects of adoptions and shared custody. Maya contributed the artistic perspective, creating illustrations to accompany the blog posts. Lily, though young, occasionally wrote posts about what it was like growing up in an extended family. The blog's success led to invitations to speak at universities, social worker meetings, and adoptive family support groups. At the first lecture, held at a university in New York City, the four women took the stage nervous but determined. "Our story began with lies and secrets," said Caroline to the packed audience, "but it turned into one of the most beautiful things in our lives. What we learned is that love doesn't diminish when it's shared," added Sarah. "It multiplies. And that children are more resilient than we imagine," said Maya. "They adapt to different family structures when they feel loved. For me, having two grandmothers is normal," said Lily, the youngest on stage, but speaking with surprising confidence. "The strange thing would be to have just one small family." The lecture was a success. Many people approached them afterward to ask specific questions about how to handle similar situations. In the following months, they received invitations to speak in other cities. They always traveled together, turning the trips into small family adventures. "Who would have thought that terrible day in the attic would lead us to this?" commented Caroline during a trip back from a lecture. "Your father knew what he was doing," replied Sarah. He knew you two needed each other. And that I needed both of you, added Maya from the back seat of the car. And that I need all three of you, finished Lily, making everyone laugh. The family dynamic had been established so naturally that it was hard to imagine how it could have been different. Each of the 4 generations, Caroline, Sarah, Maya, and Lily, had contributed to creating something unique and special. When Lily turned 18 and was preparing to take her college entrance exams, she surprised the family with her career choice. "I want to study family psychology," she announced during a dinner. "Why?" asked Maya. "I want to help other families find creative solutions like ours. I want to scientifically study the effects of non-conventional family structures on child development." Lily's decision came full circle. The girl who had grown up in an unusual family wanted to dedicate her professional life to understanding and helping other similar families. "We're going to have a psychologist in the family," David joked during dinner. "And what a psychologist," added Petey, proud of his niece. Lily was accepted into the psychology program at a renowned university in New York City. When she moved to study, the whole family went to help her get settled. "It's funny," she commented while arranging her dorm room. "I'm going to study families, and my family is my main case study." "You'll have material for a doctoral thesis," Maya joked. During her first year of college, Lily came home every weekend. She brought theoretical knowledge that complemented the family's practical experience. "Professor, did you know our family structure is classified as an extended family with multiple effective bonds?" she shared during a visit. "What a complicated name for something so simple," laughed Caroline. "It's just that psychologists like to give scientific names to everything," explained Lily. "But what matters is that our family is considered a positive model of adaptation and resilience." Lily's studies scientifically validated what they already knew from experience, that families formed by love and dedication can be as healthy as traditional families. In her second year of college, Lily began interning at a clinic specializing in family therapy. She would tell her supervisor about her own family experience, always respecting privacy, but using the lessons to help other cases. "I have a student who grew up in a family very similar to some of the cases we see here," the supervisor commented to a colleague. "How so?" "She was raised by 2 women who decided to collaborate in raising her instead of competing. It's fascinating how she processed it in a healthy way." The supervisor didn't know she was talking about Lily herself, but was impressed by the emotional maturity and unique perspective the young woman brought to the cases. During her 3rd year of college, Lily began working on her thesis about the topic she knew so well. She interviewed dozens of families with non-conventional structures, always comparing them with her own experience. "What impresses me the most," she told the family during a visit, "is how our story repeats itself in so many other families. The difference is that not all of them managed to find the balance you all found." "What made our situation work?" asked Sarah, genuinely curious about her granddaughter's academic perspective. "Several things. First, you both put my well-being above personal pride. Second, you established clear communication from the start. Third, you maintained consistency in rules and values, even coming from different families." Lily's analysis of her own family helped everyone better understand the factors that had contributed to the success of their family arrangement. "And fourth," she added, "you were always honest with me even when the truth was complicated." Lily's thesis was considered exceptional by her professors. She not only theoretically analyzed non-conventional families, but brought a unique personal perspective that enriched the research. When she graduated at 22, Lily was invited to continue her studies in a master's program at the same university. Her research project would specifically focus on co-parenting in reconstituted families. "I'm going to study families like ours to help others form in a healthy way," she explained to the family. "How proud," said Caroline at 75, watching her great-granddaughter follow a career path inspired by her own family history. "Your great-grandfather Arthur would be proud," added Sarah. "He planted a seed that is still bearing fruit today." The mention of her father made Caroline reflect on everything that had happened since that day in the attic, more than 20 years ago. "You know what impresses me the most," she said. "It's how a situation that seemed like a problem turned into the greatest blessing of our lives. It's that sometimes God has plans bigger than we can see," philosophized Sarah. Or maybe it's that love always finds a way to grow when it's nurtured with care, suggested Maya, always poetic. I think you're all right, said Lily. Our family is the result of many things: circumstances, choices, love, luck, and a lot of hard work from all of you. The conversation took place in the backyard of the house where it all began, the same house where Caroline had grown up, where she had raised Maya, and where Lily now spent her weekends. The attic, which once held painful secrets, had been transformed into an office where Lily studied when she was home. The boxes of documents were still there, but now as part of a family archive documenting that family's unique history. Lily, are you going to keep living in New York City after you finish your master's? Asked Caroline. I haven't decided yet. It depends on job opportunities. But no matter where I live, this will always be my main home. That's good to know, said Sarah. We can't imagine our lives without you around anymore. I can't imagine my life away from you all either. Lily looked at the three women who had shaped her upbringing. You taught me that family is about choosing to be present in the lives of the people we love. Lily's words echoed what each of them had learned over the years. The family they had built together didn't follow conventional patterns, but was sustained by solid principles of love, respect, and mutual dedication. That night, after Lily returned to the city, Caroline and Sarah stayed talking in the backyard until late, as they often did. Sometimes I'm afraid that when we're gone, this whole story will be lost, confessed Caroline. It won't be lost. Lily will carry this story forward, and who knows, maybe she'll have children who also grow up knowing our story. You're right. The story continues through the generations. And besides, we have the blog, the talks, all the people we've already helped. Our story has already impacted hundreds of families. The conversation made Caroline realize that the legacy of that unconventional family was already established. Regardless of the future, they had created something meaningful that transcended their own lives. A few months later, Lily came home with news that excited the whole family. I've been invited to present my research at an international conference on non-conventional families. How wonderful, celebrated Maya. Where is the conference? Asked David. In England. It's the biggest event of its kind in Europe. The prospect of Lily representing her research internationally brought immense pride to the whole family. Our story is going to be known across the ocean, joked Petey. It's amazing to think that the secret in Grandpa's attic is going to become academic knowledge on another continent, observed Maya. Lily's trip to England was funded by the family themselves, who insisted on contributing to this achievement. It's an investment in the continuation of our story, said Caroline as she handed over her share of the money. On the day of the presentation, Lily called the family via the internet, showing the packed auditorium where she would present her research. You are all here with me in spirit, she said to the cell phone camera. The presentation was a success. Lily received offers to publish articles in international scientific journals and invitations to collaborate with researchers from other countries. When she returned to the US, she brought back an even broader perspective on the importance of her own family's story. Did you know our experience is considered a rare success story? She told them during the welcome dinner. Rare how? Asked Sarah. Most families in situations similar to ours can't establish this level of cooperation and harmony. Many end up in long, traumatic legal disputes for the children. So what made ours work? David wanted to know. According to the experts I met there, it was the combination of emotional maturity, prioritizing the child's well-being over personal ego, and especially the willingness to innovate instead of following rigid patterns. The external analysis validated what they already knew, but also helped them understand why so many other families couldn't achieve similar results. Maybe we really should write a book, suggested Caroline. If our experience can help other families, we have an obligation to share it more widely. I can help with the scientific structure, offered Lily. And I can handle the practical and legal parts, added Sarah. And I can illustrate and take care of the creative part, completed Maya. The book idea gained momentum. They began working on the project during weekends, each contributing her expertise. The book would be divided into sections: the family's personal story, psychological analyses on child development in non-conventional families, legal and practical aspects, and a guide for other families facing similar situations. Caroline would be responsible for telling the personal story, from the discovery in the attic to the present day. Sarah would address the legal and financial aspects. Maya would create the illustrations and handle the design. Lily would do the psychological and scientific analyses. The book project brought a new dimension to the family relationship. They spent months reliving memories, analyzing past decisions, and reflecting on the lessons learned over the years. "It's interesting how our perception of things has changed over time," observed Sarah during one of the work sessions. "How so?" asked Maya. "Back at the beginning, I felt guilty for having abandoned you as a baby. I thought I was being selfish for wanting you back after so many years. And now? Now I understand I did what I could do at the time, and that seeking you out later was an act of courage, not selfishness. And I, who felt threatened by Sarah, now understand I was afraid of losing what I loved most," added Caroline. "You two have grown so much over these years," observed Lily. "We've all grown. You too, Maya. Remember how mature you were at 9? More mature than many adults," said Caroline. "I think children sense when adults are doing the best they can. That gives security, even when the situation is complicated," reflected Maya. The conversations during the writing of the book deepened the family bonds even further. They discovered aspects of each one's experience that had never been shared before. The book was ready after 8 months of collaborative work. They decided to publish it independently first to maintain total control over the content. Extended Family, a true story of love, acceptance, and growth, was launched at a bookstore in New York City with the presence of the entire extended family, including friends who had followed the story over the years. Mrs. Gable, now 85, was present at the launch. "Who would have thought that desperate neighbor who came to my house over 20 years ago would write a book?" she said, hugging Caroline. "Life holds surprises for all of us," replied Caroline. The book had an immediate impact. Families from across the country got in touch, sharing their own stories and asking for advice. Psychologists and social workers began using the book as a reference in their work. A national publisher offered a contract to republish the book with wider distribution. The 4 women decided to accept, on the condition that part of the royalties be directed to a support fund for families in similar situations. "We want our story to concretely help other people," explained Lily during the negotiation with the publisher. The fund created with the book's proceeds began operating the following year. It offered free legal support for families facing issues of custody, adoption, and recognition of effective bonds. The first family helped by the fund was very similar to their own story. A grandmother who had raised her grandson since he was a baby and was now facing a legal dispute with the biological mother, who wanted to regain custody. "It's as if our story is repeating itself," observed Sarah when they learned of the case. "But now we can help from the beginning, instead of each family having to figure out how to handle the situation on their own," said Caroline. The fund's work brought a new dimension to all their lives. Even retired, Caroline and Sarah found a renewed purpose in helping other families. Maya began offering art therapy workshops for children in complex family situations. Lily, after completing her master's degree, was hired by a university to teach about non-conventional families. The family that had been formed in an unusual way had become a positive force in society, helping other families find their own paths. At 78, Caroline reflected on the extraordinary journey her life had taken since that day in the attic. "If someone had told me, 25 years ago, that I would write a book and help hundreds of families, I would have said they were crazy," she commented to Sarah during one of their nightly conversations in the backyard. "And if they told me I would find one of the best friends of my life through such a complicated situation, I wouldn't have believed it either," replied Sarah. "What amazes me most is how everything connects. My father's secret, which seemed like a terrible thing, ended up being the starting point for all the good that happened afterward. I think he knew everything would work out. That's why he left it all to be discovered only after he was gone." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Lily, who was coming to spend the weekend at home. At 25, she was engaged to a fellow psychologist she had met at university. "Grandmas, can I ask a question about marriage?" "Of course, my love," said Caroline. "How do you think I should explain our family to Tiago? He knows the story, but not all the details." "Explain it the same way you've always explained it to everyone," suggested Sarah, "with simplicity and affection. Tell him he's gaining not just a wife, but an entire family that will welcome him with lots of love," added Caroline. "It's true. He'll have 2 mothers-in-law, a sister-in-law, a brother-in-law, and a whole family support network. Not to mention, he'll have very interesting children in the future," joked Sarah, referring to the children Lily might have. "Have you thought that my children will have 4 great-grandparents?" laughed Lily. "Actually, 3. David will be a great-grandfather too, but Grandpa Arthur unfortunately won't get to meet them," corrected Caroline. "But they'll grow up hearing stories about him. He'll be present in another way," said Lily. The prospect of a new generation growing up in the family brought renewed excitement to everyone. Lily and Tiago married the following year, in a ceremony that celebrated not only their union, but also the unique family they represented. Tiago adapted quickly to the family dynamic. As a psychologist, he had theoretical knowledge about non-conventional families, but living within one was a different and enriching experience. "It's fascinating to observe you all functioning as a family," he commented during a dinner. "There are no hierarchy conflicts or territorial disputes. Each one knows their role and respects the others." "It took a few years for us to reach this balance," said Maya. "In the beginning there were insecurities and jealousies. But the love for Lily was always greater than any personal conflict," Caroline finished. "And now for Ryan too," added Sarah, making her son-in-law smile. 2 years after the wedding, Lily became pregnant. The news brought immense joy to the entire extended family. "Another member of the expanded family is on the way," she joked when sharing the news. "And this one will grow up knowing the story from the beginning," said Maya. "He'll have lots of stories to tell at school," laughed David. "And lots of people to love and be loved by," finished Petey, who was now also married and expecting his first child. Lily's pregnancy was closely followed by all the women in the family. Caroline, at 80 years old, was thrilled at the prospect of becoming a great-grandmother. Sarah, the same age, shared the excitement. "We'll be great-grandmothers together too," she remarked. "Another experience we'll share," agreed Caroline. "When the baby was born, a boy named Arthur, after the great-grandfather he never met, the whole family was present at the hospital." "He'll grow up surrounded by so much love," said Lily, looking at her son in her arms. "And knowing a very special family history," added Ryan. "He'll have material for several school essays," joked Maya. Little Arthur brought renewed joy to the whole family. Caroline and Sarah took turns caring for him when Lily and Ryan needed to work. Maya crafted special handmade toys for her nephew. David and Petey became the fun uncles. When Arthur turned 1, Lily threw a party that brought together not only the family, but also many of the people who had been impacted by their story over the years. "It's amazing to think this party is only happening because of a decision my great-grandfather made over 25 years ago," said Lily in her speech. "And because of the courage all the women in this family had to make difficult choices based on love," added Ryan. The party became a celebration, not just of the baby's birthday, but of the entire journey the family had traveled. Mrs. Gable, now nearly 90 but still sharp and present, made an emotional toast. "Over 25 years ago, I saw a desperate young mother discovering a truth that could have destroyed her family. Today I see a wise woman who helped build something beautiful and inspiring. I salute all the women of this family for proving that love is stronger than conventions." The neighbor's speech brought tears to everyone's eyes. She had witnessed the entire transformation, from the first days of crisis to the current celebration. That night, after everyone had left, the 4 generations of women in the family sat on the porch of the house where it all began. Caroline, at 80, held her great-grandson in her lap. Sarah, the same age, watched tenderly. Maya, at 35, looked at her mother and co-mother with gratitude. Lily, at 26, contemplated the family that had shaped who she had become. "You know what makes me proudest about our story?" said Caroline, breaking the contemplative silence. "What?" the others asked almost in unison. "It's that we never had to diminish one person's love to increase another's. We found a way to multiply love instead of dividing it." And we created a model other families can follow, added Sarah. We proved there isn't just one right way to be a family, said Maya, and that children can grow up healthy in non-conventional structures when there's love, consistency and honesty, finished Lily. Little Arthur slept peacefully in his great-grandmother's lap, unaware of the profound meaning of the conversation around him. He would grow up knowing this story as a natural part of his family heritage. He's going to have so many stories to tell, said Lily, watching her son. And he'll grow up knowing that family is about choices, not just blood, said Caroline, repeating a lesson that had become the family's unofficial motto. The four women fell silent for a few minutes, each lost in her own reflections on the extraordinary journey they had shared. The house's attic, visible through a small window on the second floor, no longer held any secrets. It had transformed into the office where Lily studied when she visited, where the family book had been written, and where memories were carefully preserved for future generations. "I think your father would be proud of what we did with his secret," said Sarah, following Caroline's gaze toward the attic. "I'm sure he would. He always wanted the best for our family, and he got it, even after he was gone." The night was quiet, with only the sound of crickets breaking the silence. The house, which had held secrets for decades, now sheltered a family that had become an example of love, acceptance, and innovation. When they finally got up to sleep, each one knew they had built something special, something that transcended their own lives and would continue to impact other families for generations. "Good night, family," said Lily, kissing each of the women who had shaped her life. "Good night, my love," the three replied almost in unison, demonstrating once more the harmony they had managed to build over the years. End of story. This was a fictional story created to touch our hearts. Now tell us what you thought. Do you believe it's possible to build happy families in different ways? Share your opinion in the comments. If the story moved you, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories about the power of love and family.